2 o'clock, we think 3 o'clock will end, and then like 4:30, 4:40, and people still, gathering around the blackboard and writing about the equation. It's amazing. Okay. Yeah, I was just saying like that. Surprisingly, everyone is loving about. I've heard somebody actually says this is the first time they actually understand ZK. Okay. Okay, so now we have our vulnerable guest from Stanford Acceleration, and he's going to tell us about everything you need to know about to be a startup. To be a startupper, and how to raising fund, and what to look at your startups. And I'm gonna shut up and let the one who knows it present.
All right, thank you. Cool. Yeah, very happy to be here. I think while we're waiting for the slide to show up, and just a brief intro of myself. So my name is Kun Peng. So bit background myself, I'm at Stanford University. So I teach Web3 entrepreneurship at Stanford University. I also have an accelerator called Stanford Blockchain Accelerator. I help a lot of founders from Stanford and affiliated to Stanford University, like alumni, professor, researcher, etc., to start startups. The raise aggregate probably more than 500 million from some of the best VCs, like Anderson Horowitz and like. Yeah, so have quite some experience seeing people from like students, dorm room to like probably the most raised like 60, 70 mil or so funding. So yeah, being through and seeing the entire process. So here, just want to share a bit about my observations and some tips. And I also want a session to be like interactive. So feel free to stop and ask questions. And there's no really like a dumb questions, so anything is welcome. Try my best to explain. And yeah, so let's dive in. You can see the picture is Stanford. And there are a lot of entrepreneurs there. I think what matters for entrepreneurship and startup is actually the environment. Everyone in Stanford is actually trying to do something, a startup. And there's like a lot of professors and teachers there who will teach this, for hundreds of VCs teaching on campus. So what I want to do here is just democratize kind of the fundraising and VC process, so that it's not only siloed within a smaller community. And turn out, okay, I thought it's hard to read, but it's not that bad. Can you guys read like from afar, like what's on the screen, or no? I would read most of it. So this is basically a venture. I think future slide is probably easier to read. This is a lot of words. So I will try to summarize it. So basically, like, this summarizes a venture life cycle, and it's very American-based. It's a sense of number, so it's probably a bit inflated in terms of the valuation, etc. And yeah, so there are different phases for a startup. I'm wondering, actually doing a quick survey here, people, what stage are you in? Just shout out, like in terms of you like idea. Okay, most of the folks are idea. Okay.
Some of them have products already. Some of them have investor investment already.
You already raised?
They've been tough.
Okay, so cool. Yeah, so just want to kind of say, like, pretty obvious, there are different phases for your startups, like early phase, like idea phase, where you're probably just like one person or like few people. And ideally, since you have one person and you don't have money, ideally the person who is the team or the two people who form the team actually know how to do the product. Not like you're trying to use some Figma or something to create like, I don't know, like something on Photoshop image. Ideally, you are technical enough, you can actually create something. That's very important. As the beginning, you don't have resources, so you're trying to be scrappy. And then early stage funding is really your own money. Hopefully you have some saving. Or your family. So 3F, family, friends, and foe. And that's usually the highest risk. But the later you go with your startup, the less risk you have in the startup. So the earlier you are, the more trust you need from folks to know or trust you as a person. Later on, you have more traction, so it matters more the metrics and numbers come with startup. The earlier on, you don't have, so it matters a lot your product. You start with two different, or categorically could be a product-driven or tech-driven product if it's more technical, but it's more like you can also become more like a go-to-market play. It's not like tech or very low tech. Then the matters is you have sector experience, either or. And usually people who are like technical has unfair advantage. That's the case for Stanford, just because you're smart. You can be only one person. You're like 20 years old, and you can explain ZK, for instance, and then you can raise money. With market, it's a bit harder because you have to prove yourself you can do it. A lot of people can say they can do it, and you can explain it, but you actually need to have experience to prove to VCs or investors, et cetera, that you have the capability to implement whatever you want to do. Anyhow, so that's the early stage. You're very scrappy, you don't have money, and you're trying to use the least amount of money. Hopefully you can use yourself. Don't contract other people as you don't have money to build something and to test the market, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Any questions so far? I want to be interactive. I don't want to be one way to send like message or just tell you guys thing. Feel free to. There are no dumb questions, so feel free to ask questions as I go on. So later on, I'll go. Also, I mentioned this as more American kind of standard. So I think I'm not sure about other countries or regions. Usually the capital tend to be more abundant in the U.S., especially in Silicon Valley. So the valuation here might not be. Also, a very interesting formula is the later stage you are, the less matters your region. The earlier stage you are, it matters more where you're from. If you're from a region where there's not a lot of startup, or not a lot of venture capitalists, then your risk is high because you would not get noticed. You have to rely on yourself, so it matters a lot how capable you are, how scrappy you are, how much resources you can pull, because earlier you don't have any signal for VCs and you don't have VC living nearby, so harder you are. But later on, as you have concrete numbers, you think about a formula, it's basically you yourself or the team and attractions. But later as you have more and more attractions. So then it matters more your attractions. And the more later you are, hopefully you become more regional and more global. So if you're in stage, you could be valued at a similar valuation and face the same, have the same access to venture capital as American and Silicon Valley startup. But the hardest part is beginning for regions like Africa or Latin America or Southeast Asia because there's no venture capitalists and no ecosystem to mentor you and no one care. So it's very hard to start. Unlike Stanford students, like all the professors that are VCs, their homework is to learn how to pitch to VCs. And then the VCs, as a student, they tend to be able to raise the multiple millions of dollars. So the earlier you are, as a founder from region where there's not a lot of visibility, it's better to travel places, for instance here, to exchange ideas and also have visibility. Because VC is such a scarce resource, you don't have access to them and you don't know who you are. So it matters like they spend enough time with you and they know who you are, and the ecosystem matters a lot that help you to open like your mind, like something you haven't seen before, you start to see. And some of the connection you have once you go back home, you'll be able to maintain it. So it's quite useful. I think traveling, especially in crypto, is so geographically agnostic. Like you can travel to a lot of places to go to conferences that help you a lot with connections and understanding the whole ecosystem. So just early stage because I think that's more relevant. I do have some slides for different sources of funding, but I want to spend more time on the early stage because I think that's more applicable to the group. I'll be very, very fast for the later stage. I'm thinking out loud here. I think conferences, traveling, and then pop up like this one is good. And then when you are here, try to attend events also. I think Token, are you guys going to stay for Token 2049? Okay, that's a great place to maybe check the list of events, a great place to attend, and also do some hackathon. That's a great place to start to get some visibility. And what else? And go to events, a networking event, talk to a lot of people, and then try to get more exposure. Just because I think crypto is such a great, it's more democratizing kind of area where it doesn't matter where you're from. It's very kind of geographically mobile, so you can travel to a place and then you can exchange ideas and talk to people. And it's a very remote friendly, so once you go back home, as long as you have internet access, you'll be able to innovate and do startups and then travel to other places whenever there's a conference. So help you a lot, kind of eradicate or lower the barrier for geographic fairness or inequality for access of capital and mentorship and entrepreneurship. Any questions so far? Go ahead.
So what do you mean by FFF? Like you talked about the friends and family, but what do you mean by full suits?
Yeah, this is a term, as venture capital, it's like before institutional money. Friend and family fools, like they're fool enough to put in money. It's basically gambling, so they trust you enough, so give you money, lend you money, and they do not expect to have the money return. It's a acronym or what people use, and also it sounds more like FFF is easier to remember too.
And can they be termed as grants too?
Grant is not part of this. I will have a different slide. This is more for venture life cycle.
At that very early stage, do you need to start to think about your share percentage? So like
That's a very interesting question.
Working and then you have some funding from your mom.
The later. I mean, usually, I guess your mom wouldn't care. But yeah, I think those people actually would need to consider. For the earlier you are, the more interesting your pie, because the earlier you are, 1%, if you become a unicorn, that's actually a billion. That's like 10%. Is quite amount of money. It's like 10 million, 1%. But early on, as your company goes for nothing, it doesn't matter that much. So equity split in the beginning matters a lot. And the earlier you are, the more impactful is the composition of the team, the dynamic of the team, and the chemistry of the team, and the impact of one member could affect the entire dynamics, the entire team. And how you split equity also matters. Usually, if you are very, you're trying to calculate, like you have 42.60 whatever percent, I have 50 whatever. That's usually not a great sign. Usually a good sign is usually just 1-30-30 or 30 and then or 50-50. Try to not calculate too much on the contribution side. Also another thing is tend to be, family member tend to be better of 2-3 people. One person is very hard just because you're very biased on your own view. You don't have other person, and also startup is just very hard. So you want to have another person to share the risk and burden with. And 3 people is good is because you have a decision, you have a tiebreaker in terms of if 2 people disagree with each other, you have a person who break the tie. 2 people is good just because and also make sure your team members are complementary to each other. You don't want to have the 2 people have the same skill set. That's really not a good sign because you need to be quite comprehensive for your startup. And if you kind of 2 people sometimes have getting into a fight because especially your equal partner and they disagree with each other. You don't have the tiebreaker that most of the time end up into a split of the company. So.
How true is that? Because if someone says that if the founding team is 2 people, there are arguments that hey they might share the same vision sometimes, or they might have different visions. So
it's possible.
We have arguments, counter arguments on those things that you said, but how do they evaluate, or is there like a research done out of 100 two people founding teams? Most of the 80% of the teams exhibit the same behavior where they actually work well together, and 20%.
There's no, I don't think, or at least I don't know any specific research. Whatever the research might not be that accurate. because probably small sample size. But what I do know, or I think so too, as a startup is probably what is closest to a marriage and dating. You basically need to like each other. It's like chemistry, and you can tell them chemistry, right? And the same thing, you will fight, and because you touch a lot of things a couple will touch as well. It's actually closer in couple because you touch money and touch a lot of things. Yeah. Go ahead.
You talked about most startups or most founders excel because of their environment, right? And to my point of view, I needed to understand what does Stanford do differently from other continents? What is the key area that we lack?
So I think three things for Stanford are interesting. One's student, one's ecosystem, and the other one's VCs. So I think students, they're smart, entrepreneurial, but to be honest, there are smart people everywhere. If a big enough country, big enough population, you actually have a lot of people who are smart. But I think the biggest advantage Stanford has is the great ecosystem of mentors that help you, and they have done startup before. They know how to do startup, etc. They be an advisor. They help you grow, etc. That's quite lacking because people you talk to shape your view and how you do startup. People you talk to have done startup like 10, 20, 30 years, have a lot of experience, and everyone's doing startup compared to a place where, like, a joke, but little to my point is I went to Miami. Just I was saying I was doing startup. I met a random guy on the street is saying he's doing a startup too. He was like, I'm opening a restaurant, right? Cases are a lot of people, if you're not from a region where startup is very popular, for them startup is open a restaurant, which is not a startup, right? Yeah. So you don't have this kind of culture to help you grow. And then VC, you have access to VC. VC is such a luxury industry where a lot of things based on trust, but how do you win trust is by spending a lot of time with them, right? But you don't have access to them. You barely see them. And the only chance you see them is going to a conference and you are one of the 100 people they meet and they don't remember you. And then if you fail, like you fail to impress them once and they don't remember you, you're basically done, right? You only have one shot. Compared to someone in Stanford, there are hundreds of VCs teaching there, and your homework is to pitch to VCs and remember who you are. And also a lot of internship. That's the reason why a lot of Stanford students got internship at VCs, because there's no job posting. They're just, you spend your time with him, he like you, he create the post for you. Having the presence there, being able to spend time matters.
So, on the co-founder side, let's talk like being a full.
This is money, by the way. It's not their,
yeah.
Okay.
Part-time. What's your view on that? Because like sometimes, like being a full-time as a co-founder or the founder is best more than being a part-time.
Oh, I think it doesn't. I think it depends. If you require at the beginning a lot of this advancement or progress from that guy's side, and he needs to be full time, then it's definitely not good to be full time. But also from VC investor perspective, they care about the fact that giving you the money and the fact that your team is not even full time, right? But I think most, especially in crypto space, a lot of people will be fine, especially in the early stage, that most of their startups, some of their founders are part-time, and they will commit to full-time as long as they have enough money. I think that's really a acceptable statement for a lot of VCs, and they understand the risk involved with underfunded or no money startup, right? So yeah, you don't need to commit from day one. You can de-risk progressive. I think most of VC want to understand that part. Go ahead.
You shared about mentorship.
Yeah.
So what is it that they are mentoring? Is it that what kind of problems to work on?
Yeah. What mentors actually matters is situational specific. It doesn't matter if they just talk to you once, because you don't get much out of it. I mean, they teach you something, but you probably don't understand what that means. You feel like you understand it, but it's hard to. What matters, I think what mentors really matters is where they meet with you periodically or recurrently, like once a month or something. So they have a track record, how you behave. Because a lot of things they tell you is different. What they thought they were telling you is different than what you understand. because you might not have the experience to be able to understand what their message is. So you don't keep tracking. If you don't track you, they don't see how you grow, how you change. That's actually not a mentorship. So keep track and have a recurrent. It matters a lot. And mentorship actually doesn't matter to be in person. You can be even remote. But that kind of a good mentor can definitely help you change behavior or improve. That matters a lot. No problem. So go ahead.
Yes, a question. You mentioned something about how different it is for the first initial phase, basically to figure out your vision, right? So for those of us who come from those venture funders who are so few and we need a lot of visibility and you told us about traveling. So in your opinion, what should be the best thing to do? Let's say I have some plans, right? I have this idea and I want to do some bit of research and I don't have an MVP yet. So is it best to start first with the traveling as a form of investment? See, get the exposure I need when it is even building the VC connections before I even start prototyping my idea, or is it cool to start with the idea first and then along the way figure out how we're going to get to the traveling for exposure?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's a good question. So I think how stuff work is like feedback loop, right? The reason why a lot of countries that they don't have strong culture of entrepreneurship or no mentorship, it's not good because you don't have the feedback loop, right? The same thing, if your peers are all thinking about starting as a restaurant, they don't give you a feedback of why your thing doesn't work, right? The reason why Stanford works is because everyone can give you a different insight, and obviously you have to digest to choose the insight, but you get a perspective, get feedback loop, so you can grow. The reason why good at traveling is good is because you can get feedback loop. You can get people who understand the space or have a lot of experience in the space, give you feedback based on what thing you did was not right or wrong, which part is good and which part improve. Similarly, you cannot travel all the time, right? So you probably want to do, that's why it's important to be technical or be able to do the thing you want to do, right? Without money, or if you have money, it's great, but no money, you should be able to make progress as well. That's why it's good to be technical because you can program, right? So do something on your own, scrappy, whatever, just trying to build something first. And then whenever it's time to travel, and see how, when you travel, what you're looking for is mentorship and feedback loop. How to update your mental framework and product. So that's the purpose of traveling. And also another thing is quite good, like a lot of Ethereum related conferences, they're usually in a country where living costs, etc., is quite affordable, and there are quite some scholarship or pop-ups available. Like right now, I think the next one is going to be Buenos Aires. I'm from there or grew up there, so I know it's quite affordable there. Probably just look for some scholarship. Previously, Bangkok is quite affordable as well. Istanbul is fine too. So a lot of Ethereum conferences are quite affordable in place, and you can try to find travel stipend to subsidize the travel. And also another good thing is Ethereum conference tend to have a lot of people. And there's a lot of builders-related events, and you can basically plan to stay there for a month or something. You can probably find accommodation, etc. And what you're looking for, probably say if every year you can travel twice, then what you're looking for is probably the rest of the year is building, and then or you have connections. So first you be building, and then you travel to these places and looking for feedback loop to improve your product, and then cultivate connections from where when you go back, you can still have call with them, and then this kind of connection can be a feedback loop. So what's lacking in those countries where there's no such startup culture is a lack of feedback. That's one thing. Lack of capital too, but yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, I had a question. So after the initial phase, like when we are trying to raise funds, right? So how do we justify our evaluation to the investors when we haven't have any fundraising, we're just starting with it?
It's supply demand. Supply demand means how much capital is available and how hot is your startup. The earlier you are, what matters is a lot of the fluffy stuff like your background, your halo, etc., and your sector. because you don't have anything concrete. It's again the spectrum. The earlier you are, what matters is traction, the market, etc. But the earlier you are, what matters is the fluffy part. So that's why it's quite advantageous. You're from a region where there's a lot of halo, right? Stanford is a halo, etc. It doesn't mean you're starting to do well, or you are a good person, you're a good startup, etc. However, that gave you a lot of halo that matters a lot in the early days, right? So valuation matters a lot of sector. So for instance, if some sector is really hot, and you are the winner or seeming winner, or you are the hot startup in that sector, then you tend to valuation go up. If not, then probably you're gonna be not that sexy in terms of valuation. So it's very dynamic. There's no set formula. It depends on the market dynamic, supply and demand, how many kind of startup there, and the earlier you are, what the factors that affect your valuations are your background, your team's background, have you done startup before, what sector are you in, is the sector sexy, hot, and are you the one, for instance, you do ZK, you do have the math scale, etc., or doing whatever, you have the scale, etc., and that's a hot sector, and you are the winner, you're seeming to be the winner of the sector, then your valuation tend to be higher. Yeah, but the earlier you are, obviously, the less traction you have to prove yourself. So a lot of valuations are very, I would say, guessing game. If like ACC is interested, they really investing 50, 60 mil as a first round. So, yeah, it's hard to. Go ahead.
Yeah. So you talked about you only have one shot to impress. This is when you, let's say, for example, token and such kind of events, right? But I wanted you to highlight most mistakes people do while introducing their product or kind of positioning themselves for this.
Yeah, what you should take advantage of, most likely you'll be not ready. So just treat it less of a pitch and more like making friends. Because no one likes to be pitched, right? Especially if you're not ready. And also you think noise, right? Because in a conference where a lot of people are there, we see they probably get pitched like 100 times, right? They probably don't want to talk to you or listen to another pitch. And also it's extremely hard for your pitch to stand out because just imagine how many pitches they're being listening to. And also they probably cannot distinguish, if you don't know who you are, if whatever you said is true or not. Right? Because a lot of the people they talk to is liars. They have a much better product lying-wise than yours. Then I'm only talking to you 3 minutes. I can't distinguish the two. So I would just say everyone's a liar. I'm not interested to. So think about that. Trying to be less transactional, pitchy. Trying to more make friends. And also think how to impress them in 3-5 minutes. And rarely what you do because it's very hard to earn trust. And treat it as more like a beginning of a trust building process. You want to meet them several times and meet them different occasions to start as a trust. And then they'll be willing to have coffee chat or one-on-one with you. That's where things start to get interesting. It's all about trust building. If you know trust, then the reason why I say Stanford is unfair is because you spend time there is already building trust. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
I have a question. After you saying they use contractors.
Yeah, I turned down to that part, but go ahead. Yeah, what's your question?
Yes, how do you ensure maybe you're not robbed by that contractor or maybe I've seen you saying equity. So for instance, if say the product doesn't still have money for proposing a contractor for equity, how do you go about that?
Yeah, if you don't have money early on, you use your own money, or you just trying to sell a dream and see if they're interested. Usually they offer a skill set that they don't have, and also here is a little bit later. It's contractor could be a luxury if you don't have any money at all, because some of them are charging, and a lot of services you probably want from them is professional services, which is not cheap. Here's like probably later on, you already raised like initial phase maybe 100K, here's like 100K to 2 mil. and you use contractor to accelerate your process of product building. That's usually the case. And how to say you're not rugged is really hard, especially you're writing them on something you are not good at. Usually, I think friend recommendation probably the best. If especially your fellow founders and people you meet that you trust a lot that have used their services before, recommendation referral is probably the most useful.
So after you're done him, you let him go.
It depends. You like him a lot and you have money, you can keep engaging. You can even onboard him for full-time co-founder. It's very dynamic, the whole process, startup. It doesn't mean like you have to stay in a certain role. You can evolve. Go ahead.
So another thing is, what are like VCs looking for in terms of the technical side? Because now we have a lot of live coding, a lot of product that can be built by normal people.
Okay.
And for me, I think it's more about like how to sell the products now, because now someone can be like a normal person and be a technical person because he can use these tools to somehow be like a technical person. So in your VC perspective, what are you guys now looking at beyond the technical somewhat?
I think it's rarely technical ability for investing. It's more like I think in the beginning, especially you do some hardcore tech, that might be tech, but later on, like most of the products that you said nowadays can be used by coding, a lot of the coding tool there. But what matters is your execution skill, like, or your product design, right? The whole product. So instead of just one specific thing, you're just thinking the whole thing. That matters a lot, right? I think technical is hardly the thing. Especially you do a market sector, go-to-market play. You do like more tech play, that makes sense, but you need to be like very technical oriented product. Feel free to, as I said, just want to be very dynamic or interactive. Feel free to ask a question. I will try to fast kind of go through the rest. So it's basically by phase, and different phase you're trying to have more capital. Obviously, you do more luxury stuff. Means like you'll be able to have funds build MVP and use contractors, and so the angel pre-seed phase, so you want to see there's potential for your product to work and gain revenue. And you should have some MVP, functional minimal viable product, to show to VCs. And the seed stage, and also all the stages are very dynamic. It's not a specific formula, I would say. For seed, it's like 2 to 5 mil, and the valuation can vary too, depending on the market dynamic. And obviously, you're trying to level up your product to be more sophisticated and have more hires. And then the last, or whatever you call it, like later on, you should raise more, have more appetite to raise money, and do more product development. Yeah, it's kind of iterative process. Any questions? I'll go to other stuff. I'll be diving into more specific on type of capital and how to raise or where to raise, etc. There's different sources of capital since we're in crypto. There's angels, VCs, ecosystem funds, strategic investors, users, retails, syndicates, etc. Money is cheap and plentiful. That was like before. I think right now still some, but the market is not doing that well now, so it's less available. Take value-added capital. And later on your stage, the more as you're doing well with your startups, there's more potential to raise money, and a lot of more people want to give you money than you would need to take. Then that's where you probably need to consider capital to be value-added, because otherwise you would just give you money. It does not matter that much. Obviously you need to be at the place where you can afford to choose which capital to take. If you're not, you're desperate for money, then you probably just take whatever is available there. So what's value-added capital? As first is signaling. When you raise the same $1 million, you raise from a rich individual who no name, just rich, who got a big got into Bitcoin with like $100, have a lot of money, and they give you $1 million, compared to Anderson Horowitz. The signal is just totally different because that guy no one knows. Anderson is investing in you, same amount, $1 million, but then that sent a signal to the market. You are very capable, which means which will help you tremendously with all your BD, et cetera, et cetera. Just because of the name of the investor, you can do a lot of things that you would not be able to do if you don't have name brand investors. So signaling and hiring, because a lot of key hire would join because you're Anderson Horowitz program, because that indicates to the market and indicate to the employee, potential employee, that you have a lot of potential compared to a random person you never heard the name from. I mentioned already BD support, go-to-market support. They do a lot of support, and also the brand can help you open doors. A lot of partners will just sign deal with you because of Anderson Horowitz investment. Yeah, so sometimes they're just also become an extra co-founder or partners. They help you a lot with support, your startup, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's value added. Sometimes, obviously, you will have the luxury to get more people interested or more capital available. You can ask for a reverse pitch from the VCs to see what actually value they provide instead of just taking capital. If you are at a space where there's more people want to invest, then the money you can take. So I'm going to start diving into each specific type. There's angels and yeah, the angels, they're just rich individuals, and they're not institutional, and they really have certain, sometimes they don't have expertise, sometimes they do, and connections, etc. And they can provide a lot of advice, help, and support, and there are different angles, like do tokenomics, and do pitch deck review, etc., 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 etc. Sometimes since you can do a lot of angels, and they can write a small check, like even $100 or $1,000, whatever. Size usually typical is like 10,000 or 20,000, etc. Say you want to raise $1 million, that's not a lot. So you can raise from 10, 20 angels, and each of them offer a different skill set. Then you can cover your gaps, right? For instance, someone's like really good at BD for a certain sector because he is expert in that sector, then that can help you to cover or make interest. Yeah, you're really looking for a specific experience and expertise in a particular angle. And yeah, the round angels, again, that's assuming you're able to raise money. Money raising is not a thing, not a problem. Then the round angel would be the one just give money and trying to make sure you don't lose his money. That's very annoying. Yeah, any questions? Go ahead.
I have a question regarding the last sentence, how the money will be money in body. So as a founder, it is a vision you have for a product, right? So how do you navigate scenario where VC is coming, they invest in the product, but then they probably have a different idea on what they want on how they want the business to go, and so you start having the founder VC battles where you still want to move the product with the vision you had, but then the VCs are already invested and they want different direction for
Yeah.
the product.
When you have argument, right? It depends. Sometimes the smallest check make the biggest noise, which is very annoying. But yeah, I think that happens a lot, quite a bit. So I would say just have a conversation with your investors. By the end of the day, it's your company, right? Chances are you are at a disagreement. You can move on because it's your company. Sometimes later, especially later on stage of your startup, there is board control, which means they can do something with your company. But most of the cases, they don't have board control. They don't have board observer seat or board seat, which means they can't do anything governance side point of view. So I would say the best advice here is trying to talk to your VC, but investor. But obviously, people have different views. But at the end of the day, it's your company. So make sure you have good communication out to make sure, like you do not. This is rarely the case. Just talk poorly of you behind your back. But yeah, I think most that happens a lot, or not infrequently.
So when moving on, do you still have to return
You don't, in theory, you don't need to. They might ask you to return the money, but really you don't need to return the money because you're still working on your project, right? But it depends on, it's more honor code. Like you feel like you don't need the money, you do have enough money, and then you don't like him, you don't want him bother you or her bother you, you can return the money. But if you return the money and kill the company, then you can also shut down the company if you want to. You don't want to deal with investor anymore. There are actually cases where you don't want to deal with that. Investors are constantly have different views, argue with the founders, and you can just shut down the company and do a new one.
So would you suggest if people having their shared about it in that stage, of how many percentage normally would what does the pre-seed fund would want, and how many percentage you think it is the best?
It depends, but have too many dilution is not the best. So every round is roughly 10 to 15% dilution. And you're in crypto space, so the dilution is a little lower, usually lower than the equity dilution. So 10 to 15, I think, is decently common. Per round.
How do you solve investor noise, like the noise, and you try to focus on one your goal?
Noise means like they ask you to do something else?
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day is a lot of investors, they invest in a lot of things, so they probably don't have that much time to spend to argue against you. But yeah, I think just be clear and communicative to him or her to let him know what you're doing, etc. And yeah, and also reverse pitch work, right? Before you take his money or her money, you can tell a bit, right, how the kind of person he is or she is. Yeah. Chances are people who make the most noise are people who would actually not invest a lot of money. They're the most pain in the ass, but yeah, most of the cases you can just ignore them, move on, right? Because there's a lot of noise, and they don't have anything, board control, etc. Yeah.
Yeah. What are some red flags that we need to be aware of while we are taking money from the angel, right? Before taking money from the angels, what are some red flags that we should be aware of?
You can do some reference check. I think it's a reference check, but the problem is you probably don't have a lot of money, time to do reference check. But VC can do reference check because VC put a lot of money, and so less reference check you need to do. You do a lot of angels, you have 20, 30 angels, and do a reference check with 20, 30 angels is a lot of time. That's why I said I think you just move on, because the chance of you have disagreement is higher because 20, 30 people, right? And also the 20, 30 people putting like 10K each. It's not a lot of money. Yeah, that's kind of the main thing. For VCs, you probably want to do reference check of the portfolios to see how their feedback is. For angels, really, I think most of the case for angel is they don't do the work, which is your expectation. Where they're expecting them to do certain BD, they end up not doing anything, just ghosting you. Then argue against you, because most of angel is just professional angel, means like they have a lot of money, they just deploy money, etc. Sometimes they don't not even look for returns. So bothering you is wasting their time too. Good.
Just a bit curious. Are there any cases where VCs write checks to startups and they kind of lose their investment?
It's very common.
Very common? What will cause that startup?
What?
What will cause it?
Startup is just very high failure rate. So how VC work is a power law. Power law means like you have, say 50, 60, or 100 startups. One startup make it, that startup cover the entire investment. So for VC, what matters the most, what's actually is worse to miss the investment that could become like home run than investing in wrong startups.
Basically, it's like a bet.
They just need one, or high potential bets, right? You don't. It's not gambling because, or calculated gambling because most of them have high chance of success, and then one become actually that unicorn, etc., that basically return the fund or make it like 10x or something for the fund. That's what matters. They care about that home run. If you have like 2x, 3x, doesn't matter. Even like go to 0. For instance, you go to 0, 2x, 3x is not meaningful enough to move the needle, right? If we see typically invest 40, 50 team, if that team, so 1/50th, which is 0.02, doubled is 0.04, right?
You talked about they take calculated risks, right? So I would want you to like highlight like maybe 3 things that they do check about projects and
Yeah.
the return of investment from the project.
3 things they check.
Yeah.
So obviously, how they make money is the difference between the price they're getting, the price they get out. So they care about enterprise, right? So the lower enterprise, the better, because the multiples, right? And the exit price matters. And how do you calculate exit price is based on the projection. How do they calculate that projection is based on the founder, the market, right? The founder capability, team capability, and the market, how big the market is, how much, how big in general. So I think that's, and they use the idea of how much you have done so far to judge the team or assess the team, etc. Those are the main thing, and they'll come to a yes or no binary decisions. But at the end of the day, is how much multiple this is, right? It's basically a number game. So for instance, you're interesting, but you're just 2x, or for sure 2x, then most of the VC and mature VC will not invest in you because you're for sure 2x, which means I want every 100, say, the math is, I want every 100 project, one of the 100, each of the 100 per project has 100x potential. And if you're guaranteed 10x potential, then I'm not going to invest because you're not having the 100x potential. I just need a 1 of the 100 to have 100x potential, then that's what matters.
Also, do like investors take exit liquidity seriously, like in terms of like projects?
Exit liquidity in terms of what?
So for instance, considering like if you're having a project or a product, if that product has a token or something, do they take those things in consideration?
Yeah, definitely. Token is one of the biggest venue for exit. Equity too, but token tend to be more liquid. Yeah, I think I have several slides regarding different type of capital. Feel free to, as I said, stop and I'll start my presentation and ask questions. Yeah, so what looking for? Obviously looking for, right? They're looking for innovation, how innovative your idea is or your project is. And then the sector you're in, right? If it's an interesting sector or it's like a lot of people already doing something there. And then the market is a good market, a viable market, a good business model, and your own traction. And the more you have, and the higher valuation. And there's no math. It's based on, it's all like art. And the right VC is also a matching. Especially you have luxury to be able to match different VCs have multiple offers. Then the one you want to choose based on the multiple offers is the one that can provide the most value, given the space you're in. It could be infra space, consumer end, consumer, etc. So you want to be the most know the space the most and give it the most signal, right? If you're consumer end, the consumer oriented product, you want the VC to be the most famous reputable one in the consumer end. Yeah, so you want them to have a lot of support of your strategy, hiring, research, etc. But yeah, as I said, that here, not intervene more than you need. Yeah, so the wrong VC will either do nothing or do too much to intervene. Yeah, and also another thing I mentioned earlier on is the relation building. Use this occasion, the fact you're here, to build relationship. Don't try to pitch them. Chances are they meet you once and the investing is extremely low. Just treat this as a starting point of a long-term relationship. Any questions? Yeah, and also funds have different tiers. There are tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, etc. You're the higher tiers, the more signal has. But the problem is it's very hard to get. And they have the best deal flow, which means they don't care if it passes you. But lower is easier to get, and they are more dedicated because for if you raise from tier 1, for instance, Anderson Horowitz, they care you less because every founder they have is stellar. And for tier 3, if you're a stellar founder and you get a tier 3, for them they care about you a lot because most of the founders not that great. They invest. So there's different pro and con, different based on the tier of funds you want to go to raise, and then tiers really by reputation. The lower tier, for instance, you got invested by a tier 3 fund, that doesn't help you with your reputation, branding, nor like BD, all the things. And Rich Holidays just can help to close deals. I think click on that one. Ecosystem fund is quite interesting because a lot of projects in the space, especially become big. Tier 1, they start to have money, and Avalanche, Sui, I don't think Ethereum does much there, but Solana I think does something too. A lot of them have ecosystem funds. Ecosystem is interesting because they don't have a skin. They don't have skin in the game, but they really don't have or look for the exit liquidity. VC will look for exit liquidity because what matters to them is the multiple of their entry price and exit price. But ecosystem fund, what they're looking for really is just make sure the project, their ecosystem grow bigger. So that's why they're more synergistic with you. They want to help you out so that their ecosystem become bigger. Sometimes the con side is they want to tie you to their platform, where a lot of the cases are not that great. And yeah, so they could be more hands-on, which is good and bad. Sometimes they might intervene your business. Any questions? Go ahead.
Could you like go back to the slide? Go back again. Once, yeah. So you have mentioned there. I will highlight story. Story is strong. What do you mean by story? And how about if you don't have a story?
You need to have a story. You need to have a story. Pitch is about story, telling a story.
Or more of the story about the project?
The whole thing you're doing. It's called a story. Because pitching is basically storytelling. You need to have a coherent story. You can't just say what you do. Strategics, so it's really Coinbase or some like people getting because you can acquire in the future. It's good and bad here is because it might be even worse than ecosystem fund where they're more hands-on. They enter your business, they're trying to spy your business. That's why they're investing in you. And they sometimes look for exclusivity for doing BD or doing work, doing integration with them. Sometimes it's not that great. Yeah, but it's an additional amount type of capital you can raise. User and retail, which is common in crypto. You can just raise from crowdsourcing, Legend, Eco, a lot of places. And sometimes it's good because they're actual user of product, so you can crowdfunding from them. But a lot of them don't have reputation. Imagine you raise from community. It doesn't help you with your brand, right? And then a lot of them just want to make money, so they just dump your tokens. Sometimes there's regulatory risk, even in the US. But yeah, that's a security risk, etc. Yeah, so I would say there's pro and con there, and you need to be very good at marketing to be raised from retail. And sometimes you can just incentivize your whole ecosystem through retail capital. I think I'm almost towards the end. Yeah. So yeah, early stage really raised. You have equity and you have a token warrant. Sometimes it's 1-to-1, sometimes it's 1-to-2. It depends. And token award means that you're not obligated. You're not. You don't have obligation to launch token. You might just do equity and no token. And you might have a token just because you have an ecosystem, you need to incentivize the ecosystem. And yeah, so the token benefits is you can incentivize the ecosystem and your early liquidity. You get a higher valuation because tokens are liquid, but the con side is, especially in the US, there is a lot of uncertainty, still some uncertainty on regulatory side, and yeah, the token has some, and also sometimes it's distracting because the token price, since it's easy to launch a token, you might launch a token prematurely, and that kind of distract the whole project. Yeah, so some raising strategy. Trying to see how much slide I have. Yeah, I think that's the last slide I have. Okay, cool. Yeah, so the general notes is trying to build, I mentioned before, long-term relationship. Don't be like pitching. No one like pitch. To be pitched, especially in a very noisy environment, like you got to pitch 100 people. They will never remember who you are. And you're just wasting your opportunity to talk to them. They don't want to talk to you anymore. They trying to kind of share with you their Telegram, chances are they're not going to talk to you after. It's just a way to kind of move on to the next one. So don't try to pitch. Yeah, and then if you have the luxury, some of the good approaches trying to talk to tier 3 first. Practice them because you don't care if they pass on you. And then once you have enough good enough practice, you can move on to tier 2. And then tier 1. But the problem with tier 1 is there are only a few, and they have top really good deal flow, so they don't care if they pass you. But for tier 2, tier 3, chances are they don't, especially tier 2. Some of them, their hire is really good because they need to have a good partners or analysts to be able to invest in your startup, especially if you're very capable. Compared to Anderson Horowitz, they can just use their brand to invest in you. So that's why their employees are not necessarily smarter or brighter than people from small fund or smaller fund like tier 2 fund, because they care about the quality of partner to win deals. Yeah, so yeah, I would say just do an iterative process. And then right now you're traveling, just focus more on long-term relationship building instead of just pitch because you're not ready to pitch yet. And fundraising, try to accumulate a lot of contacts first, and then when you fundraise, try to be targeted and have a short, like for instance, like 2 month, 3 month target, and trying to do a lot of things within 2 to 3 months. Don't do like really long, like throughout the year thing. I think. Yeah, so I think some of the tips here, timeline-wise. So you really want a 18 to 24 months of runway, and so here says until next milestone, and with some 6 months to spare, so you have enough time to raise. Milestone is you can't just say milestone when you hit certain target, and then be consistent, right? It's like continue growing or maintain the same level, cannot be hitting that level and then coming down. And then milestone or traction is an indicator that your business is further de-risked, so that we see you're potentially interested to invest in larger amount and higher valuation. Yeah, so some of the sample milestones like build something and launch a product or test mainnet launch. Yeah, so you do some accounting to make sure you have enough buffers. But yeah, as lastly said, typical dilutions 10 to 15 or 10 to 20% per round. Yeah. Any questions? I think that's pretty much it.
Is the low churn, what does it mean? So show enough users using the constantly with low churn.
Where? show enough users with low churn. Churn means like they move away, they leave your platform. So you want to have low churn so they stay on platform.
VC is usually perceived as just raising funds or raising money, which is the majority part of it. But what are the other ways that VCs actually help us be successful in our building product or project?
Yeah, they have signaling, which means they invest in you. A lot of VC have big, good brand, so help you with BD, with hiring, because some of the hires will join because certain VC invested. That's on the branding side. And some partners willing to work with you because certain VC trust you, so you become a premium brand instead of a nobody. And money, obviously, you already know. And also another thing is Porgo. Other portfolio companies become your potential customers, especially you're doing like business-driven or, yeah, building something for businesses. So their Porgo could be your target customers. And sometimes they do events. They help you with augmenting your influence brand in the space as well. Yeah, those are some of the typical help VC would do. Yeah, this is more than money. Yeah. Sometimes they have advice to you, and they're connectors. They connect you to some good targets develop business relationship with. Okay, go ahead.
So in Web3 in general, from a perspective, is it more, do you have a higher success rate building Web3 infrastructure than building end user products? Because we had this debate where we told when you're pitching your end user product, you have to come and have traction against metrics, users, etc.
Yeah.
But when you're building infra, let's say, or layer 2 or layer 1 or whatever, you can sort of hide the product.
Well, you need to raise a lot. So one of the milestones is you have some certain hype, you have some halo, you're from good university or good brand, etc. But yes, you're right. For consumer, you probably just show traction, which is hard. And for infra, at the beginning, you just show you're capable, you're technical enough to be able to explain something or create some fancy technological story. And then later on you can raise. But you're sort of right. Like you need to, the beginning is fluffy, but it's not that easy, right? You be able to articulate how certain thing works. That's why it's better for a lot of people who don't have much experience because they're technical enough to articulate certain story. So actually Stanford founders tend to be more infra because they have the branding and they're technical, so they can explain math, complex ZK stuff. Yeah, I can take one more question. I actually had to go, but in case you have any other questions.
How can we reach you?
Reach me. You can, let me think. I'm on Telegram. You can chat with me on Telegram. It's KP_PNG. KP, K as King, P as Paul, underscore, P as as Paul, E as Edward, and as Nancy, and G as Gary.
I can see you on Twitter. Are you active on Twitter?
I don't use Twitter that much. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you can text me, but I don't use it much. PENG.
Yeah, and Clinic is also local organizer of Shanghai, and he will be here this week, right?
Yeah, I'll be here.
Yeah, this week. And during his break time, we could talk with her, get some lots of feedback from what is the business or something like that. It's very exploring this end.
We want to actually go hiking tomorrow in the morning.
Okay.
Serious? Do you think you'd be interested? It's
What
a
time?
really good
What
hike.
time? What time?
7 o'clock.
Uh,
It's a really good hike. It's
I'll check my schedule.
It's
Yeah.
like treetop. The
Okay.
treetop hike is the best of the,
Okay.
in the reservoir area.
Okay.
It's really cool.
Send me some details. I might be able to. I have to check my schedule though. But yeah.
If you want to go, I can like
Yeah.
call you.
Thank you.
6 o'clock.
Thank you.
6:30,
All right.
or 6.